Okay, we are live. Hi everybody, Chuck Holton here, and I'm coming to you from Jerusalem. It is, wow, we got hostile aircraft at the confrontation line in Haneda coming up. So just as I went to check the time, we got red alerts all up and down the northern border. Hostile aircraft confrontation. Now, just to explain to you what that means, when you get the hostile aircraft alerts, that doesn't mean that there's, you know, if they're alerting 15 different places, that doesn't mean that there are 15 different drones, suicide drones, coming across the border from Hezbollah. What that means is that the drone is pointing in a certain direction, it's flying in a certain way, and when it's anything that's in its path is going to get alerted. Once it passes over, then the alert goes away, and they'll try to either shoot it down or wait until it lands and see what happens. So it might not be as bad as it looks if you're following the Shofar app, but it still looks pretty bad. I mean, this is all up in the northern area. That's just one of the alerts just now that came through. So it may be that perhaps Hezbollah is making a response to the fact that they failed in their last response just a couple days ago. So blessings to all of you from Jerusalem. It is noon on the east coast of America and 7 p.m. over here. Now, I'm going to go ahead and get to the news, give you a quick update, and then we'll talk more about it, dive in a little bit deeper. The reason that I called this this live, the shadow war, is because, you know, Israel did an amazing job day before yesterday, or I guess it was early yesterday morning, in taking out the Hezbollah rockets that were aimed at them and were very likely going to cause massive damage inside Israel. They took out a whole bunch of rockets and their launchers on the ground about 15 minutes before they were due to launch, apparently, at Tel Aviv and all across the north. Now, Hezbollah paints a little different story. They say that they had planned, they fired exactly what they planned to fire, which was, they say, about 300 rockets. That's the number that's being repeated in the mainstream media everywhere, but Israel only counted like 240, not 320. So there's that. But whatever it was a lot for one day. Normally they've been shooting 50 to 60 rockets a day, just trying to keep Israel from being able to return people to that area. And so yesterday was a big day either way. Now, the only person that was killed by apparently a piece of falling shrapnel from the Iron Dome system that landed out on a patrol boat out in the ocean off the coast of Lake Nahariya. Now, it could have been a rocket or a suicide drone that hit that boat. There's some video of it, and it just looks like a flaming ball of fire coming straight down on that boat, and pow. So one poor sailor was killed in that. That's the only casualties in terms of people. I mentioned yesterday that they did hit a chicken coop, and they're being soundly mocked and ridiculed because they made this gigantic attack and they only managed to kill a few chickens up there in northern Israel. That may be one of the reasons why they're firing a bunch of rockets right now as we speak, or not rockets, it looks like drones actually. And I'm just looking to see if we've got any more. So recently, today we've had a couple of rockets actually fired out of not Kiryat Shimona, out of central Gaza. So Hamas still is able to fire missiles at Israel, and although Israel keeps finding more tunnels, keeps killing more insurgents, keeps clearing out areas over and over and over again, keeps destroying buildings that are being used for military purposes, they have still not nailed down everything in the Gaza Strip. And one interesting thing is that they actually paved a road now along the Philadelphia corridor, which is right on the border with Egypt. It looks like, by the looks of things, that Israel plans to stay there for some time, and they put a paved road down so that they could get back and forth faster and with less dust, I guess. Now, excuse me, I don't have my Jordan River water today. I just have plain old sparkling water. But people complain about me drinking on camera. I'm like, what do you want me to do? My voice is, I'm making 3 hours of television every day. My voice would be completely dead if I don't keep drinking water. So you're going to have to bear with me if I have to have a sip once in a while just to keep my voice going. But anyway, along the Philadelphia corridor, Egypt is raising a ruckus because they say they will not accept Israel staying there along the border between Egypt and Gaza. Now you have to ask yourself why they would do that. Because Egypt has a lot to gain from a more secure border with Gaza, but they also have a lot to lose because a more secure border means less contraband gets back and forth across that border into Gaza, and that means a lot of Egyptians are losing big money that they were making by transporting that contraband through all the tunnels, something like 150 tunnels along that route. So that tells you kind of what Egypt is interested in, which I could have told everybody that. I mean, I've been to Egypt and everybody has their hand out in Egypt. There's just no two ways about it. You go to Egypt, everywhere you go, it's just like everybody wants money from you. I won't get off on a tangent, but it was very frustrating at some points because you just couldn't get them away from you. I mean, they're just like mosquitoes, just like, get off me, gee whiz. And I get it, they're desperate for money after COVID. Everybody needs to make a living, but making a living by just walking up, the guy, everywhere you go in your car, you go to get out of your car, there's going to be somebody there trying to open your door for you, and then they want a tip for that. I don't need you to open my door. Get away from my door. And so it's not surprising that the economic component of moving contraband, as in weapons, people, drugs, whatever, back and forth through those tunnels into Gaza, is the thing that Egyptians are most worried about. But obviously those are things that Israel cannot afford to have flooding into Gaza again. And so Israel is made very clear. They're going to stay there along the Philadelphia corridor for as long as it takes. And that's one big point of contention in the current round of ceasefire talks. Now, as far as those talks go, Hamas still hasn't showed up for those. The United States is basically there pressuring Israel to make more and more and more and more and more concessions until they lose the war. Because, and I wouldn't even say that necessarily the Biden administration wants Israel to lose the war, because that's not going to make some of their Democratic Jewish donors happy. But they just want to get this thing over before the election. And even Hamas can see this. They came out with a statement yesterday and said, we understand that the United States is just pushing for a ceasefire because they have an election coming up and they want to make it look like they did something valuable here, but we're not accepting their current offer. And it's almost, well, not almost, it is definitely working against Israel and working against the United States that everybody knows this. I have to say this is probably the first time that I actually agreed with Hamas on one of their statements. But the fact that they know that the United States is desperate to get a deal so that they can campaign on that, means that Hamas can hold out for a better deal, because they know that the United States is going to do their dirty work for them and continue putting more and more pressure on Israel, since they know they can't put pressure on Hamas. And so this is where the ceasefire talks stand. Israel has made it very clear that where they stand, and there's still a lot of daylight between Israel and Hamas on those peace talks, but the United States keeps coming out of the meetings and saying, things look good, we're making progress. Yes, this is great. We're going to have a deal before long. If they get a deal, I will be personally quite surprised, because Hamas doesn't want a deal at the current time, because they know that the United States will push Israel into giving more and more and more. Israel doesn't necessarily want a deal at the present time, because they're winning. They're actually taking the fight to the enemy, and they're destroying the enemy. And so as long as they're doing that successfully, Israel doesn't have a lot of incentive to just give up a bunch of stuff when it looks like they're actually going to be able to take it without having to give up anything eventually. Now, as far as Sinwar goes, one of Sinwar's biggest, the top of his list in these negotiations is that he get to survive and go somewhere like Qatar and live out the rest of his life at a luxury resort. But of course, Israel's not so fond of that idea. And now there's rumors floating around that Yahya Sinwar is actually wandering around Gaza in plain sight dressed as a woman. And so I guess that means that Queers for Palestine is now a real thing. And you know, I wondered what could you call that? I'm going to talk more about that on my channel here as soon as I finish with this live. I'm going to go over there and talk about more about what Yahya Sinwar is doing and what Israel can do to end the war sooner. So if you haven't followed me on the Hot Zone, please go to the Hot Zone with Chuck Holton and click that subscribe button, that notify bell, and then you'll get notified when I go live, and you'll be able to go on there, and I can answer a lot more questions over there as well, because we get fewer people online. Now, so let's talk about Iran and its plans, because we just saw yesterday Hezbollah kind of was ready to fire its big, reaction, its big revenge attack for the killing of Fuad Shukr on July 30th, like a month ago. And they've never waited that long to retaliate. So it's obvious that they had been planning this for some time. I said that on yesterday's live. You know that they have to have been planning it for some time, because Israel would not have been able to just throw up 100 aircraft all primed and armed and ready to go and zero in on 40 different targets across southern Lebanon and take out, who knows how many hundreds or thousands of rockets and their launchers. They wouldn't have been able to do that at the drop of a hat. That's the kind of mission that has to be planned. It has to be trained for. It has to be very tightly executed with a lot of support. And it's not the kind of thing you're going to do on the spur of the moment. So it's not like Israel was just looking through their binoculars across the border and said, oh gosh, there's a bunch of missile launchers being set up. Call the Air Force. And the Air Force just scrambled a bunch of planes and they bombed all these 40 different places. No way. Israel has been planning that mission for a couple of weeks at least, if not more. And that probably means that they have very good intelligence from inside Nasrallah's camp. And Nasrallah knows it too. And he's definitely not happy about that. Israel has been very effectively and precisely targeting Hezbollah sites and people over the last couple of months. As a matter of fact, in the last week, they've taken out thousands of rockets, missiles, before they could be fired. They've taken out some of the storage facilities for these rockets and missiles. Nasrallah, in his speech last night, said Israel has just been striking empty warehouses. Well, I don't know how those empty warehouses managed to be firing off a bunch of missiles, what I mean is when they drop a bomb on the warehouse, you can see from the footage the missiles that were in the warehouse cooking off and going off in all directions. And that tells you that, yes, there was something in that warehouse they just bombed, or cave they just bombed, or whatever it was. So they are, they obviously have very, very good intelligence. Now, a lot of that intelligence is likely coming from the United States. The U.S. has honed its intel gathering capabilities to a very fine edge, and I have some inside information on that. I, won't go too far sharing it with you, but just suffice it to say that the United States intel gathering capability is at a pretty high state right now, and that's evidenced by open source information that you can find anywhere. That is how the United States has accurately predicted, for example, the day that the war in Ukraine would start. They've accurately predicted that things would happen in this theater during this war. Unfortunately, they did not they were not able to find out ahead of time that Hamas was about to attack on October 7th. It would have been nice if they had, or if they did have that information, they didn't share it. But you could pretty safely say that the United States is helping Israel in its intelligence capacity and is doing a good job at helping Israel find, fix, and finish Hamas operatives and Hezbollah operatives and Houthi operatives all around the Middle East. People that have been supported by Iran. Now, Iran, for its part, this is where we get into what's about to happen. Right now, Israel says that they are turning their attention to Iran, working very hard to try to ascertain what Iran's plans are for the upcoming days. Hassan Nasrallah said in his speech last night that they had planned and executed this attack yesterday on Israel, not in conjunction with their other partners in the region, that would be Iran, or the Hashishabi, or the Houthis, or whatever, but that he fully expected that they would also perform retaliatory attacks when the time was right for them. That was echoed by a senior Iranian official today, that Iran is still planning something big. We've got a big present for you, and it's going to happen when we are good and ready. So that may just be talk. It's probably not. It's probably not just talk. There probably will be something. And that's why I wanted to talk a little bit about the concept of asymmetric warfare. Because whatever Iran does to attack very well may not take the form of a full-on military, kinetic attack with missiles and drones like they did back in April. Probably not, because back in April, their attack failed miserably and was very embarrassing to them. As it turns out, the United States and Israel and Jordan and Saudi Arabia and a bunch of other countries all working together can pretty well thwart anything that Iran can throw at Israel, and they've proven it. So Iran probably doesn't want to get schooled like that again anytime soon. With that in mind, what we have to look to, and this is the thing that concerns me the most, is as I have been studying the history of this conflict. Just today I had to drive Oscar to the airport in Tel Aviv and come back. So I got a couple of hours to listen to this audiobook, Rise and Kill First. And it's a very good history of the conflict as told through the lens of how the Mossad has played a part in the conflict. And one of the things you'll notice is that when the Palestinians start losing badly on the more traditional battlefield, then what they start to do is engage in insurgent style attacks, and we've started to see an uptick in attacks like that here in Israel. Now, you might remember that a few days ago, there was a suicide bomb that went off in Tel Aviv. It was a Palestinian guy out of Samaria who put some explosives in his backpack and walked into Tel Aviv, got in there, tried to destroy a synagogue, but a truck apparently passed between him and the synagogue right at the last moment, and so he detonated and it didn't destroy the synagogue. But Iran has said, and Hezbollah has said, you're going to see more of those. Now, I'm going to try to make sure I get this right. I saw on Telegram today a very short mention of, let's see if I can find it. Well, I guess I didn't put it up there. It was a very short mention of something that happened yesterday, and I missed, I don't remember where in Israel it was, but they found a bunch of explosives on a bus and were able to, disarm it, I guess, and not, it didn't blow up and hurt anybody, but it could have, and it could have hurt a lot of people. Now, if you're as old as I am, you might remember times in Israel's history when suicide bombs were an almost daily occurrence inside the country. And those suicide bombs are typically carried out by Palestinians supported by Iran. This same script that we're seeing today. And they were very, very common, where school buses and bus stops and lines for the ATM and grocery stores and any place where people congregated was a dangerous place to be. And I feel like that we may be coming into a season in Israel where we will start to see more of that. Israel is obviously concerned about those kinds of things, although probably not concerned enough. Last night, for example, Oscar and I went out to eat at a pizza place right over here, and they have chairs and tables set up outside because the weather is wonderful right now. So we sat outside and we were waiting for our pizza and we were talking. And there's a street, it's right on the edge of the street over there. It's King David Boulevard. And every time the light turns, we get a rush of cars coming kind of at us at an oblique angle and then going on that street that's right in front of where we're all sitting. There was a large family there sitting outside having a birthday party with a bunch of kids, and there were a bunch of people out there enjoying the evening and everything like that. And just as I started, I was thinking about this, and I said something to Oscar, like, Oscar, this might not be a real good idea for us to be sitting out here, because this would be a real good place for a ramming attack. And there have been many ramming attacks or attempted ramming attacks that have happened over the past, several months. Even in the last couple of days, even today, there was a ramming attack. And so most of the streets in this area of downtown Jerusalem actually have either metal or concrete bollards all along the street to separate the street from the sidewalk so that cars can't just jump up on the sidewalk and start mowing down pedestrians. Almost every street in this whole area has those. But as we were sitting there last night eating, and I was watching those cars as the light turned green come right at us and then turn onto that street right in front of us, I started to realize there's no bollards on the street right here. And if a bad guy wanted to, we'd be in big trouble. So I was kind of concerned about that. And just about the time I mentioned that to Oscar, a car with about 4 looked like teenagers in it, young men, took off from the stoplight at a very high rate of speed, actually was spinning the tires a little bit and actually fishtailed a little bit as it was coming toward us. And I started to get up and dive behind a tree that was off to my left. And it just flashed by on the street there. And it was just a bunch of kids just being reckless. But they were doing a good 60 miles an hour by the time they got across that. It was an electric car. And by the time they got across that big intersection toward us, they were moving fast. And if they had had ill intent, they would have killed a lot of people there. And so this is something that Israel is going to have to be really aware of. And I'm afraid because of the history and because of the last several weeks, what we've seen, that there may be more attacks like this. Shooting attacks, stabbing attacks, ramming attacks, all those sorts of, sort of insurgent style attacks that you see in an insurgency, the kind of thing we saw in Iraq and Afghanistan, for example. We saw a lot of that. Now, that's not the only way that Iran could engage in, sort of asymmetric warfare. A sort of shadow war, if you will. The biggest way that they engage in asymmetric warfare is by supporting all these proxies. So they've got Hezbollah, they've got the Iranian-backed militias in Iraq and Syria, they've got the Houthis in Yemen, they've got Hamas, they're now supporting a Al-Shabaab group in Somalia. They are trying very hard to start up another organized proxy group in what they call the West Bank. And this is very concerning. Israel has been ramping up operations inside the West Bank or Judea and Samaria over the last few months, and especially over the last few days. There have been a lot, and I mean a lot, of IDF missions that have been executed inside Judea and Samaria in the last few weeks. They don't usually make the mainstream news because there's just too much else going on, and it's sort of just background noise in terms of the total news picture here on the ground in Israel. But I will tell you that there have been a tremendous number of missions. Now, the IDF doesn't go in there and stay there for the most part, most of the time, because it's right there. So they plan their missions outside of the area. They drive into the area. They hit the target house or whatever it is that they're looking for. They try to capture a few people, whatever they're doing, and then they come back out. Or they just drop a drone missile on top of somebody's car or house or whatever, if they can do that without risking a lot of collateral damage. So you've got all these different proxies, and they are trying to expand that and develop more proxies. Now, why would this be a real big deal, especially in Judea and Samaria? Because there is no fence. There's very little, I say no fence. There's a chain link fence or a barbed wire fence, easily defeatable fence that sort of cordons off that area. There are some checkpoints on the road, but there, at least from what we've heard, there were a ton of Palestinians that lived in there who came and worked in Israel proper in factories leading up to October 7th. And those people, a lot of them, it just took too long to go through the checkpoints and all that. And so they all knew where there were holes in the fence that they could just slip right through and get to work. Well, now a hole in that fence is a much bigger deal, and it would be very easy to put more holes in that fence if they so desired, because it's not very well monitored, and it's it's an October 7th waiting to happen in there. So if they can sufficiently radicalize enough Palestinians in there to cause some major attack, then it would not. You shouldn't put it past them to do that. That's something that Israel should be heavily preparing for. And one of the ways that they keep that from happening, perhaps, is by not losing in Gaza. If they just are diligent in persecuting this war in Gaza to the fullest extent and just absolutely crushing the resistance in Gaza. And in the meantime, they're sort of making a parking lot out of it. The people that live over there, who actually have a much better life than they might if they were in Gaza, are going to see that and go, yeah, well, we might hate the Israelis, but we would rather our city not look like that. And so maybe we won't do that. So that is a good deterrent on the part of Israel. Now, another way that Iran can engage in asymmetric war is by supplying weapons to people and by radicalizing people, like I mentioned. So whether that's supporting schools that they know are going to radicalize people, supporting imams who are going to preach against Israel and call for jihad, that happens all over the Middle East. Those people have a lot of power, and they can, if they start telling everybody on Friday prayers, you need to go out and start, laying waste to areas that we need to conquer, they may very well be able to stir them up to that. When we were in Kerak in Jordan over the weekend, we went to the Crusader Castle there. It's an 11th century castle, very, very amazing, big castle up on top of the mountain in Kerak. But the village of Kerak is a pretty sketchy place. And as we were driving around, you could tell, like, this is not a good place for us to be. Getting a lot of hairy eyeballs from people. And we came around a corner and there was a big mural painted on one wall that said in English, "Jews are baby killers," and had murals of scenes of rubble in Gaza and things that I'll get us demonetized if I describe it in too great a detail. But I can put up those photos of these things I'm describing over at chuckholton.com. So if you'd like to see what I'm talking about, go to chuckholton.com. You can sign up over there and for free, and you can see what I'm talking about. I'll put those up as soon as I can. So one of the things that Iran has been supplying to people around the world, its friends and allies, lately is drones. They've been heavily supplying their Bayraktar Shahed, not Bayraktar, that's Turkish, sorry, their Shahed drones to Russia, North Korea, and Hezbollah. And those drones are more accurate, harder to shoot down because they fly low and they have greater range. And so this is one tactic that Iran is using to try to engage in asymmetric war. Because if Israel has drones flying at it from Iraq and from the Houthis in Yemen and from Lebanon and all over the place, it's just that much more that Israel has to defend against, and very expensive for them to do so. Cyber attacks, asymmetric warfare includes things that that Iran has been very good and getting better at for a long time. They have been engaging in cyber warfare against Israel, and in many sort of low-tech cyber warfare and high-tech cyber warfare, they have a very large, something in the thousands, maybe even tens of thousands of hackers working inside Iran to damage Israel any way, shape they can. Any way they can. So, there's a sad little baby down there. So we don't get beeper guy yet tonight, but we do have a sad baby. Hang on just a second. I'm going to turn this light down because it's gotten dark. And it's just me here. So, we have, every time I do this, there are viewers who will come on and complain, like, you should have people producing this for you. This is not professional. And I'll get their undies in a bundle because I had to take half a second and turn down the light. And I'm just like, lighten up, Francis. I mean, this is the whole point of this kind of interface, this kind of venue, is that it's a little more raw, it's a little more real, it's a little less produced, it's a little less polished. And people seem to like that a lot because they're so used to being lied to by the mainstream media that is very produced, very polished, that they kind of like it when it's just uncut, unfiltered, and it's just me, kind of a guy here on the ground telling you what I'm seeing. And people kind of like that. But there's always those few in the comments who are like, man, just getting all whiny about it. And to them I say, go watch CNN. Bye. Look, even CBN puts out plenty of well-produced content, even as YouTube Lives. You can watch those, but that's not what this is meant to be. This is meant to be me just giving you my heartfelt understanding of what's actually going on the ground, taking your questions and comments, replying to them. It's a two-way street, and a lot of people like it. So we're going to keep doing it. And if you don't like it, I'm sorry, but my mom always taught me if you can't say something nice, then don't say anything at all. Okay? Now, I'm going to go, as soon as I get done here, I'm going to go over to my channel, and I'm going to talk more about Yahya Sinwar, what he's doing, and about the possibilities for an end game in Gaza at least. Okay? So when I get done here, if you're interested in following that over there, I'm going to be done here in just a few minutes. I'm going to cut this a little bit shorter than usual. And I'm going to go over there and I'll start that. That one is already live, public over there, so you can actually go join that conversation as soon as you're done here. Actually, you might even be able to join both of them simultaneously and just leave it in a window off to the side if you're watching on your computer, but whatever. Just to let you know that I'll be addressing more of that when I get over there here in a few minutes, okay? So I wanted to try to answer some questions real quick because I've seen some go by, and I'm going to back up a little here and see. Question: how sophisticated is Iran's drone operation? Are they making their own parts or getting parts elsewhere, or just assembling them? Very good question, CC. They are assembling their drones using high-tech equipment purchased from other places and repurposed into drones. Now, as you know, Iran has a lot of sanctions levied against it right now. And so companies that don't want to be sanctioned themselves should not be selling their product to Iran. The problem is Iran can get those products from other countries that are not being sanctioned, although those pathways are getting a little bit tougher. And we know that they're able to do that because in just yesterday, there was the parts of a drone recovered. Oh, here comes our nightly one. Just one. Oh, he's turning up this. No, he's going that way. Okay. Just today, I saw a photograph taken from a drone that had crashed, and they were able to salvage some of the parts out of it, and they took a picture of one of the components that was inside that drone that came across from Hezbollah. It was an Iranian drone. And that part, whatever that component was, I don't know, it was some electronic thing, had stamped on it, made in Germany. I myself have seen parts of those Shahed drones in Ukraine, and they, one time, they were able to recover an entire motor from one of the Shahed drones. And I saw it was up on blocks, and I was talking to the soldier that had it there. And he was showing me, look, this part, this part, this part. We've identified like 26 parts in this engine. It's a reciprocating engine that were built by Bombardier from Canada, the snowmobile maker. And so I wouldn't be buying snowmobiles from those guys if they are supplying their parts to Iran. More likely, they're supplying their parts to some other country, Namibia, I don't know, Senegal or someplace, and then Iran is buying them from them on the black market at a markup, something like that. But to answer your question, they do not have the full capability to produce their own high-tech drones. They do have to get some of the components from outside of Iran, as evidenced by the fact that their former president was flying around in a helicopter that was built in 1968. And they obviously weren't able to maintain it very well, okay? So, Therese says 511. What's 511? Oh, okay. Oh, what brand is your shirt? Yeah, it's 511 shirt. Actually, this is Oscar's shirt. I stole it from him, and he was nice enough to let me have it. Let's see here. Where's your Jordan Sour Apple Green water? No, it was, it's, okay, so I'll tell you what my water was yesterday, Jerry. It is a drink that I get at there's a little hole-in-the-wall store over here in the shopping district that's nearby where I'm staying. And it's, I hope I get this right. It's called Ergot juice, Ergot, got something, EGOT, Ergot. And apparently it's some kind of fruit or something that's found here in Jerusalem. And the guy who started that little store got the idea of juicing it up and making juice out of it. And it's supposed to cure everything from hair loss to hot dog fingers. And so I tried it, and because I like green juice. I drink green juice a lot when I'm at home in Panama. And it's much tastier than the green juice that I'm used to drinking. But it looks about the same, which is, you know, about like pond water that you got out of a very stagnant pond. So that's what it was. It's supposed to be super healthy for you. A lot of people just see the color of that and go, bleh, I'm not going to drink that, like my wife. But I actually kind of like it. Okay, so how important is October 7th? Looks like you were starting to type something else to clarify your question and then hit return by accident. So I don't know. I'm not sure what you're asking there. Obviously, October 7th was a massive, massive day in Israel's history that will never be forgotten. Let's see here. Yeah, I had a bunch of people complaining that I was making light of the chickens getting killed yesterday. How dare you make light of this tragedy? And I was like, oh, lighten up. You know, look, it is a serious thing. It is a tragedy. But on this particular forum, with me talking to you, don't expect that I'm going to be like Dan Rather up here. Oh, well, there were 4 personnel. You know, that's not what this is about. When I'm on CBN, like today I was on Newswatch this morning, and I'm not going to be cracking jokes over there. I'm not going to be a goofball over there. But here you just get the unfiltered Chuck Holton. And a lot of people like that. Okay, so let's see here. It's a shame you have to be on high alert anywhere you go. Yes, it is, for sure. If you have another question, ask it now or forever hold your peace. Is there any damage or injuries from the debris of missiles destroyed by the Iron Dome? Yes, at times, Rance, there is damage from falling debris, both from the missiles that are being shot down and from the Iron Dome system that shot it down. The difference is that the explosive in the missile has already been detonated up in the air. And so it's just junk falling on the ground, which can kill people and has. I saw one video back toward the beginning of the war. There were 2 guys walking down the street in Tel Aviv, and a long, like 8-foot long piece of a missile came down right next to the guy and just went whong into the ground, inches from where he was standing. You can imagine that guy went out and bought a lottery ticket that day. But so yeah, it is dangerous, but it's not going to be near as destructive because it doesn't have the explosive force of the warhead that's already been detonated up in the sky. Okay. Let's see, thumbs up button. Yeah, please hit the like button, folks. If you want to donate to CBN, keep us on the road here. You can do that by going to cbn.com, and you can donate over there. CBN will get more of it than if you donate here on YouTube. Question, how much of a loose cannon is Turkey in the region, or more specifically Erdogan? Can NATO depend on them? Isaiah, well, they are a loose cannon. No, NATO cannot depend on them. I don't think they're loose enough to go kinetic against Israel, to attack Israel. They're likely not going to do that because it would go badly for them in terms of their NATO membership and things like that. So I think that they are, while they have talked a big game about, well, maybe Turkey will just send our army down there and take care of those Jews. That's very unlikely to happen. And, we have a lot of clout when it comes, the United States has much more power over Turkey than we would over, say, Iraq or Iran, because Turkey is an ally, and they can be unallied very quickly if we want to. Okay, why am I getting two different stories on this? One set is saying the weapons got through, and you're saying most of the weapons were destroyed, and they're saying Israel is losing. Well, you're looking at the wrong sources, Suzanne. If you're looking at InfoWars, you're looking at the wrong place. I read an article from them today where they were saying Israel is losing badly, and I'm like, I haven't seen them here, but I'm here, and I've been from the north to the south, and I can tell you for sure Israel is not losing. And look, there's a lot more video that comes out from these attacks than we can actually show you because of the censorship rules that are rightly imposed on us by Israel, because you don't want to tell the enemy things they don't need to know. And for example, if something gets blown up or gets missed and you film that and put it up, then Hezbollah will be able to go, oh, we were aiming at this and it hit there, so we just need to adjust next time a little bit and we'll hit our target. We don't want to give them the ability to do that, and so we are somewhat limited on what we can put up on social media or on television. But I can tell you from everything that I have seen, to include troop movements, troop dispositions, to include armor coming out of the field, that is, material, trucks, tanks, bulldozers, things like that coming out of Gaza. If they were losing, you'd see a lot of those coming out of there damaged or destroyed, and you just don't see that. You just don't see a bunch of damaged and destroyed vehicles and tanks and armor and stuff coming out of Gaza. Now, I have to say that the IDF works against itself over time and is really, really spectacularly dumb about the way that they try to they try to fight the information war, okay? Because there are lots of things that we could report on that they won't allow us to report on just because they're dumb. I mean, I hate to say that, but I have been fighting with the IDF since day one on some of these stories that would tell the good work that they're doing, that would not give away anything. Look, I've been doing this a long, long time, more than 20 years. I know what I can report and what I can't. I know what'll, tell bad guys things that they don't need to know. And I'm not going to report those things. But the IDF press office does everything it can to stand in my way to keep me from telling the story of the good things that they're doing inside Gaza and elsewhere around the country. They really do. And it's often because maybe they're just unaware of the import of independent media being able to corroborate the things that are going on inside the war zone. Maybe it's because they're just being run by lawyers who are, petrified that journalists might get killed and sue them. I don't know what the reason is. Maybe it's just that they just don't want to do their job. I don't know. These people don't get paid for what they do, by and large. The ones that got drafted, when they're on duty, I just, found out recently that they don't actually get paid while they're on duty like American soldiers would. until they, actually like making it a career. If they're just there for their reserve duty or whatever, they're not getting paid for that. And so maybe it's just they don't care. But whatever it is, I have encountered very little out of the IDF press office that is not spectacularly arrogant, sometimes downright rude, always unhelpful. Even when they act like they're trying to be helpful, they're not. And so that could lead somebody to believe that maybe they have something to hide. Now, I don't believe that because I'm pretty adept at reading between the lines in a combat zone because I've spent 20 years in combat zones. And so I'm going to tell you the truth, and I'm not going to sandbag the IDF. And I get a chance to talk to soldiers off the record a lot. And so I get a gauge of their morale. I get a gauge of how they feel. And the thing that they're most disheartened by is what I'm telling you about right now. It's the fact that their own press office is thwarting the world's ability to know how well they're actually doing on the battlefield. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to go on a rant about it, but it is true. And I was fighting with them today. I wanted to interview a 95-year-old IDF veteran. I mean, it's a great little story. He's being used to motivate the troops and everything. They put a uniform on him. They put a gun in his hand. They took him out to, give little pep talks to the troops before they go into Gaza. This 95-year-old veteran. I thought, what a great story. I'd like to do that. And the IDF says, okay, well, we won't let you into Gaza, but I'm like, well, can you set me up with an interview with this guy? And they're like, well, we'll try. And so then they come back and they say, oh, well, okay, so can you do it this day? Yes. And I'm like, tell me where and when, and I'll be there. Just tell me where and when, I'll make it happen. And they tell me where, they don't tell me where, they don't tell me when, until the day before we're supposed to do it. They say, oh, he's too frail, he's just going to have to do it over the phone. And I said, well, okay, if I have to do it over the phone, I can do a Zoom call, and we can just do it. Oh no, he can't do a Zoom call. It's got to be just a regular audio phone call. And I'm like, you understand? I'm making television here. If you think you're helping by offering me a phone call with this guy, you're not helping. And I can do better on my own. And so I've just kind of given up on the IDF press office. Now, I hate to go off on that, but man, so frustrating trying to work with those guys, especially because I support Israel. I want to show that Israel, the good work they're doing. I want to show the things they're doing. Even if I was to go and report on the bad things that happen to Israelis in the combat zone, that's going to solidify the resolve of the Israeli people, most likely. Or if I were to go and, God forbid, report on a crime that was committed by the IDF, and there have been a few, I would also be reporting that the IDF prosecutes those criminals, their own soldiers who do things wrong. The IDF goes after them and puts them in jail for it. And that is the measure of a moral country, of a moral military. So anything I reported out of there would likely be positive for Israel and would help offset some of the absolute trash that is being reported out there by the likes of Scott Ritter, InfoWars, and things like that. And so, I don't understand how these people, it's their job to interface with the public. They're the IDF press office. It's their job to get the word out about what they're doing. And they fail so spectacularly at that. If the IDF soldiers performed as poorly at their jobs, the IDF would have been vanquished in Gaza by now. Okay? And so, all right, rant off. I'm done there. Sorry for going off on that, but does not make me happy. Not familiar with journalism etiquette. Can the CNN photojournalist be prosecuted for his part? Not only that, Jerry, can he be prosecuted, he can be droned. He can be liquidated. And some of them have been. Some of the people that were quote-unquote journalists who went into Israel on October 7th and actually took part in some of the mayhem have been given a dirt nap by the IDF since then. So, all right, let's pray, and we're going to go, because I'm going to start my live here shortly. And so, like I said, if you want to talk more about all this, just go over to the Hot Zone with Chuck Holton, and I'll be live there in about 5 minutes, okay? Let's say a prayer. Lord God, please forgive me for the times that I let my emotions get in the way of my reporting. Please give us all a sense of our duty to pray for Israel and to support your people, your nation. Lord, they're not perfect. They leave a lot to be desired in a lot of ways. But God, I just pray that you would help us to have grace with each other, have grace with them. And Lord, I pray that you would have grace on us as we try to do that. We need your Spirit more than ever, Lord. And Father, I pray that the IDF would be able to gather the intelligence they need to capture Yahya Sinwar very soon without harming any of the Israeli hostages who are doubtlessly being kept around him as human shields. Father, I pray that there would be a ceasefire very soon, but that it would not be detrimental to Israel or her security in any way, shape, or form. I pray that you would send your angels to camp around the IDF that are in the field and protect them and watch over them and give them victory, Father. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, folks, thank you for watching. Like I said, I'll be live on my channel in just a minute, so we'll see you over there. Take care.